We're going to talk about how to collaborate to elevate, right? It's easier when we're all working on the same team and helping each other. Cross-team collaborations can make everyone's jobs easier and more rewarding, right? Sometimes the hardest parts of our jobs are the challenges associated with silos and people maybe kind of in the way or not really supporting what we're trying to do. And I think what's really exciting in our roles is when we do get to collaborate across teams, and I think more and more companies are doing that. I had a horrible experience at a previous company where one department head just literally almost had velvet ropes around her team, and you had to fill out a form to talk to her people in product. So it's obviously very frustrating. But when these cross collaborations and silos get broken down, it creates not only a better environment for success, but it's very rewarding at a personal level, and it can also help with your career growth. So we have 3 panelists. These are smart, driven, and successful women, and they're going to share their experiences. And I think just to kind of level set everything, I know we see their titles and the companies they work for, but I think it's always nice to kind of get a better feel for their perspective on the business that they are part of. So we can just start from my right and head on down.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Jen Kim. I'm the Director of Acquisition and Retention Marketing over at Helena Troy. So I oversee kind of everything from paid media and affiliate marketing, overseeing 3 brands within the conglomerate, overseeing Hydro Flask, Osprey, and OXO.
Hi, I'm Sam Kimmel, and I lead co-marketing partnerships for Hello Sunshine. Hello Sunshine is Reese Witherspoon's production company. We have a lot of great brands under Hello Sunshine, including Reese's Book Club. So if there's any readers in the room, you're probably familiar. The Home Edit is another one of our big brands. And I won't spend too much time talking about what we do, but we have a really dynamic business where we have TV and film production. We work with brand partners. We have licensing with Walmart and lots of other really exciting parts of our business. And so I lead all the co-marketing partnerships where brands can work with us to integrate into our world.
Awesome. Hi everyone, Carolyn McKay from Walmart. Shout out to my team right up front here. Director of Social Commerce at Walmart. Social commerce has a lot of different definitions, but at Walmart we oversee all of our content partnerships, our influencer partnerships. We have a part of our team dedicated to Walmart Creator, live streaming, commerce integration, so lots of different ways that shows up, and really happy to be here. Thanks for having us. My background, just to give you a little bit about some of the things we'll talk about today. I spent 5.5 years in the startup world, so very different than working for the Fortune #1, and before that, Urban Outfitters and American Eagle.
Awesome. So talking about silos, I feel like companies are getting smarter about this, but some of our past experiences, I mentioned one that I thought was terrible. But I'm curious from your perspective, just where you've seen kind of maybe compartmentalization or where it's been very difficult, and then maybe even some examples of where that's kind of broken down and the successes that come out of it. Because I think, again, people are just focused on doing their job, and the person down the hall or in the other building, if you're Walmart probably, might not even be aware that you exist, but there's a lot of synergies and opportunities there. So I don't know who wants to jump in with.
I can start.
Sure.
So from the Hello Sunshine side, because our business is so dynamic, we have everything from film and TV, we have a daily podcast called The Bright Side, lots of different areas of the business. A lot of times when we are talking to brand partners, there's different teams that own each piece of that business. So the people who own the on-air integration are not the same people who own licensing or our social and commerce partnerships. So a lot of times I think what we run into is when we start talking to a brand and we want to do a really holistic program where we might have a TV integration, we might have custom social content, we might have a licensing deal where we're developing products. Those are all very different teams. And so I think those silos definitely get in the way when you want to do something really interesting and dynamic. But what I will say, I think our team has done a really good job at when we are working with advertisers, bringing all of those different teams together. And what we obviously find is that we can do much more exciting things. A recent example, we did a Taco Bell partnership with Reese's Book Club. It was around bringing people together over lunch and kind of getting people to gather and talk about books. And I think through that partnership with Taco Bell, we were able to work with so many different teams in the org who maybe didn't know each other before we started working together, but us kind of bringing them this big idea and figuring out who to bring in really helped us do something really unique and custom versus having to work with all of these individual teams on kind of one-off basis.
And I would imagine that experience for all those different teams, they kind of realize, hey, we're better together.
Exactly.
And so it kind of almost snowballs that ability to work like that.
Exactly.
I would say on the client side, it helps so much when we work with partners like that, where they're doing the heavy lifting of bringing the right people together, because there are so many times when we get pitches or proposals and it's like one partner, but we're getting multiple different proposals, multiple different pitches, and we have to sort through that. It's really difficult to manage that. And then likewise, then we internally are bringing it to all sorts of different teams and gaining alignment. So it helps when both parties are breaking down those silos that you're talking about.
But I think, from all of our perspective, imagining working at Walmart, such a large company and lots of moving pieces and potential silos, I mean, what is your perspective coming from a startup going into Walmart? What's it like behind when you close the door?
My team's gonna roll their eyes because I talk about this all the time, but I spent 5.5 years at a startup. I was in sales, so it was a very different type of challenge that you have to learn. Helen of Troy was one of my clients. Like, you have to break down silos amongst all of those companies as well. And like, the one thing that always works is figuring out the value. What are you doing that is providing value to who you're trying to sell to? That works externally and internally. Obviously, when you're selling, it's like finding out your buyers' personal values and then their goals. Like, what are you goaled on? How can I help you achieve your goals? What problems do you have? So that's all about asking questions. The same thing is true internally. And at Walmart, it's a huge company. There's teams that every day I learn of a new team that exists that I didn't even know about before. And it's the same thing. Like, what are you goaled on? What does success look like in your role? How can I help you achieve that? How can my team help you? How can our partners help you? Because when you frame it that way, then people are willing to give you what you need too to be successful. So for me, that's like how you gain advocacy, is figuring out what is that value and how can you help them achieve that? Because at the end of the day, everyone's trying to achieve their goals.
Yeah, I actually agree with you so much, because working on 3 different brands, you have 3 different departments for every single one of those brands. So like, having to work with every single different person within a different brand, that function, and who's the SME, everyone has different KPIs. So you're really just trying to like make sure that they're hitting what they need to do from their end, and also trying to fulfill what you need. So just trying to like understand each other and just really just being like almost like one team versus it being very siloed is something so challenging in large companies. But I think the more and more we work together, I think we slowly start to understand that it's very much like just it's a small world that we all live in, and we're just all trying to work towards the same goals at the end of the day.
Yeah, you can usually find that common ground, right? Like,
yeah.
There's something that connects all of those brands. There's some goal that you're all trying to achieve together.
Yes. So you might have to dig for it, but you'll find it.
Exactly. You have to ask around for it.
Yes.
And you mentioned in the startup that you were mainly doing sales, and I always find the skills of selling works really well internally, because you're able to kind of when someone sells, they have a plan, whether you know it or not.
Exactly.
And they're going to walk you down that road to hopefully get an outcome of you buying. So it seems to me like sales is one of those kind of skills that I think a lot of people are intimidated to even think they have them or to get them, because they think, oh, the salesperson is the lone wolf, hunter killer out there selling, and that's not me, right? I'm a nice person. I just want to get along with everyone. Yeah. How do you leverage things like sales
Well, it's so funny, because when I was at American Eagle before I joined the startup Micmac, and the founder of Micmac was we were talking, and she was like, are you interested in joining a startup? I was like, I mean, in theory, sure. To do what? And she was like, sales. I was like, sales? I have literally no sales background. And the way she positioned it was, every day you are selling internally. You're trying to get budget for your projects. You're trying to get executives to advocate for what you're trying to push through. Mm-hmm. And when she put it that way, she was like, you have the seat at the table. It's the same thing. You just work for a different company. And so when she put it that way, I really understood. But I was intimidated because I didn't have a sales background.
I had a similar experience. So before I joined Hello Sunshine, I was at TikTok for a bit. And then before that, I was at Pinterest. And I was actually in sales at Pinterest. And similarly, I did not come from sales. I came from agencies, which I'm assuming a lot of you guys are at agencies. So I felt very intimidated about having a sales quota and the idea that I'm being measured on, how much revenue I'm bringing in. And what I realized was actually to be successful in any role, you are a salesperson, whether you're in marketing or you're the CFO or you're an intern, you have to sell people on your ideas and the things that you believe. So it turned out I actually really liked sales, and having a revenue quota actually turned out to be very attractive to me because it was very clear. I think for anyone who's gone into review season feeling like I have no idea how my review is going to go, I think I did well, does my boss think I did well? When you're in sales, I think the beautiful thing is you know how you did because you have your quota and it's very measurable. And I think those skills are very transferable. So my advice would be anyone who can work in sales for a little bit, it's a really, really good learning experience, I think.
I feel like I'm missing out on the sales world.
We got to get you into sales.
I've been working in marketing my entire life, and I've always been on the side where we're supporting our sales team.
Yeah.
Whether it's, I used to be at Estee Lauder company, so helping out those who are on the floor at Ulta or Sephora, or even helping out our field team as that's something that I've always been able to do, but now I feel like I'm missing out, that I need to learn how to do sales a little bit more to
Well, the marketing support, I think you kind of got to this. Everybody's working together. Even if, you're not the person actually doing the sale, sales is fueled by marketing because without marketing coming and, putting together the strategy and the ideas and the reason for being, sales doesn't have anything to talk about. So I think marketing plays such a significant role in sales that it's all really connected.
It's a peanut butter and jelly relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a lot of times at these conferences, marketing, but internally as a SaaS company, you almost never hear sales marketing. It's always sales and marketing because they're feeding each other. They are working together. And I think, there's obviously books you can read about sales to learn, but you could also go to the sales team and go, give me some tips or help me, what I find interesting is we hire a lot of kids out of college that are business development reps, BDRs. They're probably the first ones you've ever been accosted by. And it's interesting because they, maybe they studied some of that in college, I doubt it. And then they learn those skills and they end up moving up into our sales workers. And they might move somewhere else. But I'm always fascinated at watching that and them getting their first sales. And, I walk around a lot when I'm in an office and talk to, especially the salespeople, to hear what deals are you working on? It's interesting, honing those skills, and I do think that they're very applicable, and I think people kind of are intimidated by sales. Like I said, it seems like a thing that you either are or you aren't.
But we all kind of are. I think that's the ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kind of are.
So, what other strengths or skills do you see as important in kind of getting buy-in or advocating? I mean, obviously, sales is a seems maybe most people look at it pushy or, kind of forceful kind of way of getting your way. But what are the things that you do to kind of get somebody else to kind of, I guess, be more receptive or open to what you're thinking or wanting?
We all unanimously agreed on this when we were talking beforehand, just getting to know each other, curiosity. And I think you pointed this out, Carol Ann, that if you ask people what's motivating them and what their KPIs are, that's something that is going to be really valuable in helping you figure out how to navigate. So I think we all agree the best thing to do is be curious, get to know what other teams are doing. Even if there is something that doesn't feel like it's in your scope of work, get to know that person, get to know that team, sit with the sales team, sit with the marketing team, sit with the finance team. Finance maybe isn't the sexiest to some of us on the kind of marketing side, but if you don't understand the financials of the business, you really have to be successful. So I think we all kind of agreed curiosity was definitely.
I think asking questions, being direct, you can literally ask someone, what are you gold on? What do you value? We have leaders at Walmart, some of them really want everything to be rooted in insight, so you should lead with that. But there might be another leader who is really passionate about the financials, so you should lead with that. So I think it's also understanding a little bit of studying of what do your leaders respond to, who are you trying to gain advocacy from, because that's going to shape how you're positioning it as well. And that's, again, internal and external. It works in both settings.
For me, I'm like, my core value is kill them with kindness. That is something that has really taken me like so far in my career, that like being so kind and being so genuine, being authentic to whoever you're working with internally or externally can really take you so far. And I just genuinely live by that every day. Tell my team every day, just kill them with kindness, then you'll probably get what you need.
I love that. I have a saying that I tell everyone: people do business with people they like. And that's true. That is just a human basic truth.
Yep.
And I like the idea of, the way you talk about asking questions a lot. And I think a lot of people feel like if I don't know, I don't know, so I must be dumb, or like they're going to think I'm dumb. And I love when people want to ask questions, because especially when it's not even in their domain, right? You do need to know how the other teams operate. And a lot of times it's how you kind of alluded to this, but how you communicate to somebody is different because of their perspective and what they're thinking about, as opposed to somebody else who's more data driven, let's say. So I think data is another thing. It's like a language, right? Reports, information, data, being able to package that up in a way that makes sense to somebody is an art as well. Is there any other skills or even just like we want to go down the path of like how you leverage data to help with getting your way or getting other teams to work together?
Gosh, I'm such a data nerd. I think you have to be when you're in paid media and affiliate. And our strategy has changed so much in the past year. Affiliate has always been a huge mix of our revenue that has been being driven into our brand sites, but really it has been even more so as we really head into this world where cookie deprecation is really real, that we're dealing with every day as brands. And affiliate is sometimes it's just more efficient. We're able to pay for what we drive, and that's significantly more efficient than having to do like a cost per click situation with paid media or looking at the CPM. So data drives every decision that we make, but I think as a marketer, you kind of have to have a little bit of both. You kind of have to have that data-driven approach, but then also some of that instinct that you have as a marketer, you kind of have to bring those two together in order to make the best strategy and the best business decision for your brands.
And Jen and I were actually just talking about this. At Hello Sunshine, a lot of brands want to work with us because they want to leverage the likeness of the company. They want to reach females, they love our production style, they want Reese Witherspoon, they want our book club. There's a lot of reasons they want to work with us that are a lot of in the upper funnel. They're around like the brand metrics. And what we are focusing on is talking to brands about full funnel, and we were just talking about how affiliate is definitely playing a role in that, because at the end of the day, all brands, marketers, agencies want to sell something.
Yes.
They want to see business results. So a lot of what we're doing, we do focus on upper funnel, but the way that we're starting to think more about lower funnel includes things like affiliate, where we're able to track, did we actually move the product? Did we actually make the sale? And I think what Jen and I were talking about, which I think could be a whole topic in and of itself, is that balance of, as a brand, figuring out like how you really have to approach everything full funnel. And you can't just look at affiliate in a silo by itself. It's like, how is affiliate interacting with the things that you're doing in the upper and mid funnel? And then that's really where you start to see the great success.
Like working with someone like Hello Sunshine, it gives us that reach that we need as a brand. But then how do we really show the value in how it's driving business is really how we work with affiliate. We put them on a CPA, so then we really understand like it's just driving conversion. So we can definitely know that full funnel, like the full funnel approach definitely works out for us.
Yeah. I would say the other part of this conversation, like I agree with everything you all said, and it's art and a science, and there's so much data. You could spend, your every existence could be mining data to find the story. But you also have to ruthlessly prioritize what you're trying to achieve, because otherwise you're going to go down these rabbit holes. Someone's going to ask you, well, what did it do for brand lift? And you're like, that wasn't the goal. The purpose of that wasn't for brand lift, right? And so always orienting back to that, I think, is really important in the storytelling too. Otherwise you'll just get
I think
bombarded.
That's a really great point, because we'll do an upper funnel campaign, and then the client will ask like, well, how many products did we sell? And it's like, you really have to be so clear in what your objectives are. And every campaign, every creator that you work with, every piece of content can't do 75 things. It's really, really important to be clear on what the objectives are and get all of your stakeholders bought in, so that when you are in the reporting meeting at the end of a campaign, you're not saying, well, what did we do for brand lift? Well, this was a lower funnel campaign. Or what did we do for sales? Well, this was an upper funnel. It's like really setting expectations and then kind of managing that throughout the process.
I think a lot of marketers always want everything.
Yeah.
They want it all.
Yeah.
They want the brand lift. They want like the conversions. But it is very
And
true.
the press.
The press, they always want the
What kind
PR
of
press.
Yeah, it's like-
But at the same time, I think you're so right. Like you just have to, like, again, going back to collaboration, like we really just need to have a foundation of what is our goal at the end of the day. Like be really like clear about that, and I think it works. But also like I hate analysis paralysis, and that's really a thing when you are so data driven, and it does sometimes hinder you from like making those quick decisions. But I think that's something that as you like move a little bit quicker, that actually is not a problem anymore. So.
Yeah, I think, overall communication is obviously key here, and it's one of the things that everybody always mentions that they love about affiliate and influencer is that you're dealing with people as opposed to, programmatic and search. You're kind of just dealing with a machine and reports. And I think, from a publisher's perspective, you want the customer, the brand to be happy.
Right.
And that's where you have to get that communication and alignment. There's plenty of times where a brand is like, we want to work with you, and they don't really know what they want. They just know,
Yes.
hello, sunshine,
That's
hello.
Oh, yeah.
They want Reese.
They want Reese on
Do it.
packaging.
What can we do?
Yeah.
And they don't really have the plan. And so I'm sure you have to kind of help hold them down and kind of help them think about things a little bit.
Yeah,
more, right?
I think absolutely. And I think, working with great partners, like we work a lot with Walmart, they're a really great partner. And I think it really just all goes back to everything we've all said, which is just about setting expectations and just making sure that, we're being very clear about what a campaign goal is and what we're hoping to accomplish, so that you're not in the position, because nothing's worse than when a client's not happy. So when you've worked on a campaign, you've worked really hard, your team's worked really hard, and then you get to the reporting meeting and they're disappointed in the results. So I think in all of our roles, it's so important. You want to keep all your stakeholders, your clients, everybody involved happy, and it's challenging because everybody wants different things from one campaign.
So this is something I want to get your take on. Like sometimes you're trying to get something done, you've got your boss above you, and they're kind of like not supporting it, and it's a good idea. You're not able to get there. How comfortable are you going around your boss to your boss's boss?
I don't know.
Why is everyone looking at me? God, okay. I think it goes back to the principle about like gaining advocacy and like the concept of groundswell. And usually, you're not only relying on one person for approval or advocacy or belief in the idea. So if you create that groundswell with others that might influence, I think it's not as direct as what you're asking of literally just going above your boss. You do need their support.
Yeah.
And so I think it's about gaining buy-in in other ways, because there's always another way. Even if they say no right now, ask for feedback, ask questions.
Yeah.
What would make you comfortable with this plan? What else would you need to see? Maybe they want the financials, maybe they want the insights. And so I think it's about asking questions. Again, no means no, but there's always another way. So ask the questions and gain the other advocates along the way.
And I would say this is where I think data really comes in. So a lot of times, if somebody says no, but you think it's a good idea, I think it's on you then to prove why it is a good idea. And that's where kind of collaborating with other teams and getting the data to make your case, I think you should get your boss's buy-in. I don't think it's a good idea to go around your boss, because ultimately your boss has a huge impact on A, your happiness, and B, your career. So, and your growth at a company. So I think the best thing is really, if your boss says no, but you have a strong conviction on it, don't go around your boss, convince your boss by bringing data and bringing receipts to the table and kind of be able to show that what you're recommending makes sense. And then if you have a good boss, which hopefully you do, then they will probably be open to, considering listening.
Yeah, I agree. A deck goes a long way. Really, that data-driven approach getting buy-ins from like other stakeholders that might be like very close to the project, I think is really important. But for me, I work really closely with, from a paid media perspective, like working with a Google or a Meta, getting their buy-in and kind of getting some other brands that are adjacent to your brand as well kind of helps make the case a little bit easier for your boss to kind of make the decision, even though you might get pushed back like 5 times, but it's okay. Just don't ever give up. You'll always like get the answer that you want. It's just gonna take a little bit of time for your boss to come around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people internally and externally across our teams, and I have sometimes strong opinions or great ideas that I want everybody to know about. But a lot of times I tell people, look, I don't, don't let what I say be the, it's just informing. Take it. I'm happy you now know what I think. Whatever you do with it, I'll be okay with, because you heard me out, right? I don't have to own the decision. I remember early in my career, it felt very personal, and I really, I felt the product or the thing, or what we were gonna do, it had to be exactly this, or it wasn't gonna be good. And then I just learned to kind of let go a little, and it's like, look, if I made my say, I had my say, and I remember when Dave Ivano first came on as our CEO, I said, look, I just want to be able to come to you and tell you things, and what you do with them, that's up to you. But I feel good that you know what I know, and you're the guy to make the decision.
I think it's a cultural thing too. Like certain companies' cultures might have different values in terms of hierarchy or decision making or working fast, failing fast. I think it also depends on the environment that you're in.
Definitely agree with that. And the type of boss you have, like if you have a boss that is comfortable with you saying, this is my opinion, do what you want with it, that's great. But I definitely have worked in environments where they don't really want to hear your opinion. And I think personally, for me, it's important to work someplace where the environment is supportive of everybody being able to speak up.
Yeah. I think it's really smart when the manager is giving power to their team, knowing that their team is probably smarter than they are. I think that makes for a good manager.
I think the best managers are working for their team, not having their team work for them, right? They're there to make their team successful. Well, this went way faster than I imagined. We're down to 1 minute exactly. I was going to ask kind of any parting advice that you guys might want to, last piece of advice you have for everyone here that's...
So when I first started, I got to have a one-on-one with Sarah Harden, the CEO of Hello Sunshine, which was kind of like a pinch me moment because I really idolize her and think she's amazing. And I asked her for advice because I said, I want your job one day, I want to be the CEO. So what do I need to do to get there? And the advice she gave me was very in line with what we've all said, which was the curiosity. And she told me that I need to really focus on learning about every part of the business, even the parts that are not super interesting to me, particularly the financial side. So I think my advice would be just the curiosity. Take meetings with everybody that will meet with you and really just try to learn as much as you can.
That's awesome.
I think we talked about that a little bit in our prep session. For me, it's all about having that open mind, because you have no idea what opportunities you might have just by asking a simple question, by networking, and just having an open mind. You may find yourself, as you grow in your career, owning things you've never managed before. Going back to your team is probably smarter than you at what they're managing. I completely agree with that. Shout out to my team. It all goes back to that, just having an open mind, being hungry, and having that growth mindset will really take you far.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going to go back to just kill them with kindness.
I was just going to say, I knew you were going to say that.
Kindness goes so far, and that's really something that I just really stick true to, and I think it's just something that everyone just could use a little bit more kindness in their day, every day.